I was standing in the canned goods aisle at my local grocery store a few weeks ago, and something felt off. The shelves weren't empty. Everything looked fine on the surface, but I started reading labels, checking dates, comparing prices, and that's when I realized how unprepared most people are. Not because disaster is coming tomorrow, but because there's a specific window right now where the smart decision is obvious, and almost nobody is making it. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 10 foods you actually need if supply chains tighten, prices spike, or shelves get picked over. Not survival fantasy stuff. Not freeze-dried astronaut meals. Real food. Food your family will actually eat. Food that lasts, stores easily, and gives you real nutritional coverage when the options get thin. And I'll warn you, number 7 on this list surprised even me. I've been buying the wrong version of this item for years, and it wasn't until I really dug into the data that I understood why. Stay with me for that one. If you've been thinking about building out a pantry but didn't know where to start, this is the video. Hit subscribe right now so you don't miss what comes after this, because I have 3 more of these coming over the next few weeks. Okay, let's get into it. Item number 1. White rice. Let me start with the obvious one, and then tell you why most people are doing it wrong. White rice is the backbone of any shortage pantry. It is calorie-dense, cheap per serving, and when stored properly, it lasts 25 to 30 years. Not a typo. Decades. A 5-pound bag from Walmart right now runs somewhere between $4 and $6 depending on your region. That is an absurdly good value for the shelf stability you're getting. Here's what I noticed when I looked into this more carefully. Brown rice gets a lot of positive attention in health conversations, and I get it. More fiber, more nutrients. But brown rice has natural oils in the bran layer that cause it to go rancid. In a warm pantry, brown rice can go bad in 6 months to a year. White rice, milled and dried, has had those oils removed. It stores almost indefinitely in the right conditions. I spoke to someone who works in food distribution, and they confirmed this. They said the number 1 mistake home pantry builders make is buying brown rice because it feels healthier and then never rotating it properly. 6 months later, it smells off. They throw it out and never try again. What you want is long-grain white rice in a sealed mylar bag inside a food-grade bucket with an oxygen absorber inside. If you can't do all that right now, even a sealed 5-gallon bucket from a hardware store with a tight lid will dramatically extend your shelf life over just leaving it in the paper bag from the store. Buy what your family will eat. If they eat 2 cups of rice a week, do the math. 3 months of coverage means roughly 25 pounds per person. That is a manageable starting point, and you can build from there. This is about making your food budget stretch further and making sure your family has a foundation. That foundation starts here. Dessert, item number 2. Salt. This one gets skipped constantly. I see people building elaborate pantries, and they've got 20 types of protein and 5-grain varieties and 0 salt. That is a serious oversight. Salt is not just a seasoning. It is a preservation tool that humans have used for thousands of years. Salting meat, fish, and vegetables was the primary way food was stored before refrigeration. In any extended shortage scenario, whether that's a power outage, supply disruption, or simply inflated grocery bills, salt becomes one of the most versatile items in your home. The pricing data backs this up too. Salt is absurdly cheap right now, relative to its utility. A 4-pound canister of iodized table salt runs under $2 at most stores. Kosher salt in bulk is slightly more, but still pennies per use. And yet, when supply chain conversations come up, salt almost never makes the list. I looked into the history of salt scarcity, and it's eye-opening. Historically, salt was so valuable, it was used as currency. The word salary comes from the Latin word for salt payments to Roman soldiers. In modern disruptions, iodized salt specifically has seen shortage pressure because most of the iodine used in food-grade salt is imported. Store at least 20 to 30 pounds of salt per household. That sounds like a lot, but it takes up almost no space, costs almost nothing, and it never goes bad. Never. Salt is indefinite shelf life. It can absorb moisture and clump, but it doesn't spoil. Keep it in a sealed container and it will outlast everything else in your pantry. Salt also enables you to preserve other foods. If you have access to meat or vegetables and no refrigeration, salting is your first line of defense. This item punches above its weight in a shortage situation. Shaktash. Item number 3. Honey. Here's one that surprises people when I bring it up. Honey. Real, raw, unfiltered honey. Archaeologists have found honey in Egyptian tombs that was over 3,000 years old and still edible. That is not a figure of speech. The antimicrobial properties of honey, the low moisture content, the hydrogen peroxide it produces, the acidity, make it essentially immortal under proper storage conditions. No other food on this list can say that. But here's what I noticed when I checked prices last month. Raw honey has gotten expensive. A quart of local raw honey can run $15 to $25 depending on where you live. But store-brand clover honey at Walmart or Costco, which is pasteurized but still stable, runs about $6 to $8 for a large jar and stores for years if kept sealed and away from direct sunlight. The nutritional value is real too. Honey provides quick-burning carbohydrate energy, has mild antibacterial properties that make it useful for wound care in a pinch, and it can be used to preserve fruit through sugar-based osmosis. People have been using honey to extend food for centuries. I started buying an extra jar every month and just rotating them. It costs almost nothing extra in my grocery budget, and I now have a 10-jar stockpile that I cycle through. The oldest jar is still perfect. I use the back ones, move new ones to the back of the shelf. That's it. No complicated system. Beyond food, honey has traditional uses for sore throats, minor burns, and skin irritation. In a scenario where you're dealing with limited medical resources, that versatility matters. 2 to 4 pounds per person is a reasonable starting target. Buy it when it's on sale. Don't overthink it. This is one of the easiest and most rewarding additions to a survival pantry. Chakir. Item. Number 4. Dried beans. Dried beans are one of the most nutritionally complete foods available in a shortage context. High protein, high fiber, filling, calorie dense, and when you buy them dry, not canned, the cost per serving drops dramatically and the shelf life stretches to 8 to 10 years with proper storage. The variety matters here. Black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, lentils, chickpeas. These all provide slightly different nutritional profiles and culinary uses. Lentils are especially interesting because they cook faster than other legumes and don't require soaking. That matters if fuel or water is limited. I was looking at price comparisons between canned beans and dry beans, and the difference is significant. A can of black beans provides roughly 1.5 cups of cooked beans and costs around $1 to $1.20. A 1-pound bag of dry black beans costs $1.20 to $1.50 and produces around 6 cups of cooked beans. 6 times the volume for essentially the same price. The trade-off is preparation time. Dry beans require soaking and cooking. In a normal pantry situation, that's a minor inconvenience. In an extended shortage where fuel and water conservation matter, it's something to plan around. That's why I recommend keeping a mixed supply, mostly dry for long-term storage, a rotating supply of canned for convenience and quick access. I keep 50 pounds of mixed dry beans in food-grade buckets in my basement. I rotate through them by cooking with them regularly. Bean soups, chili, rice, and beans, hummus. This isn't food I'll only eat in an emergency. This is food I eat every week. That's the key mindset shift. Don't buy food you won't actually eat. Buy food you love that also happens to store for years. Dried beans fit that profile better than almost anything else. Advas, item number 5, canned fish. This one often gets left off lists because people assume it's unpleasant. But canned fish, sardines, tuna, salmon, mackerel, is one of the highest quality protein sources you can store, and it comes in its own container with years of shelf life already built in. Let me talk specifics. Canned sardines in olive oil are nutritionally exceptional. They provide omega-3 fatty acids, calcium from the soft bones, vitamin D, and high-quality complete protein. A can runs about $1.50 to $2.50 at most grocery stores. It's ready to eat straight from the can. No cooking required, no water required, no fuel required. Canned tuna is more familiar to most American households, which helps with the "will my family actually eat this" test. Light tuna in water has lower mercury content than albacore and is generally considered safer for frequent consumption. A family of 4 eating canned tuna twice a week for 3 months needs roughly 75 cans. At current Walmart prices, that's around $75 to $100. That is an extremely low-cost protein reserve. I started paying attention to canned fish sales at my local store after reading about supply chain pressure on fresh seafood markets. Several major grocery chains have flagged sourcing volatility in their supply disclosures. Not front-page news, but it's in the filings if you look. What I do is buy 6 extra cans every grocery trip and rotate by date. Oldest cans in the front, newest in the back. Within 2 months, I had a 3-month supply without ever spending more than an extra $10 per shopping trip. The omega-3 content alone makes canned fish worth storing regardless of any shortage scenario. Most Americans are already deficient. This is a health upgrade disguised as emergency prep. Twaachus, item number 6, rolled oats. Oats have gotten expensive. I noticed this personally. A standard container of Quaker rolled oats that cost under $3 2 years ago is now pushing $4 to $5 in most markets. But here's the thing. Even at that price, oats remain one of the cheapest per-calorie foods available. Rolled oats store for 1 to 2 years in their original container, sealed in an airtight container with an oxygen absorber that extends to 25 or even 30 years. They are calorie-dense, provide slow-burning complex carbohydrates, are high in fiber, and cook quickly with minimal fuel and water. Oats are also one of the most flexible foods in your pantry. Cooked as porridge, they feed children and elderly family members easily. No chewing problems, no complex preparation. They can be ground into oat flour for baking. They can be eaten cold soaked in water overnight. They can be mixed with honey and dried fruit to make basic energy bars. I've been buying 50-pound bags of rolled oats from a restaurant supply store, the kind that sells to bakeries and food service operations. The price per pound drops significantly when you buy in bulk like that. I split the bag between 2 large sealed buckets, and the cost per serving is almost negligible. What a lot of people miss is that oats also provide psychological comfort in a stressful situation. Hot oatmeal in the morning feels normal. It feels like breakfast. When routines are disrupted, familiar food matters more than people expect. This is something emergency responders and disaster relief organizations have noted for decades. Plan for at least a pound of oats per person per week as a minimum. More if your family eats it regularly. It is a gentle, filling, cheap, and long-lasting staple that belongs in every pantry. Takajur item. Number 7. Apple cider vinegar. Here's the one I mentioned at the start. The one that surprised me. And I want to be honest. When I first started researching this video, I had apple cider vinegar on my rough list, but I almost cut it. It seemed too niche, too wellness influencer, too trendy. And then I started digging into the actual utility of it, and I felt like someone had been keeping a secret from me for years. Apple cider vinegar, raw, unfiltered, with the mother still in it, is a food preservation medium. It has been used for pickling and preserving vegetables, eggs, and proteins for centuries. The acetic acid content creates an environment where most harmful bacteria cannot survive. You can extend the shelf life of fresh vegetables by weeks using a simple brine made from apple cider vinegar, water, and salt. In a shortage scenario where fresh produce becomes scarce or expensive, knowing how to quick pickle vegetables at home is a meaningful skill. And apple cider vinegar is the foundation of that skill. Beyond preservation, the uses are extensive. It functions as a natural cleaning agent and surface disinfectant. Not hospital grade, but functional for household sanitation. It has documented use for digestive support. It can be used in hair care when commercial products run low. And a diluted rinse can help with certain minor skin conditions. The shelf life is indefinite. Apple cider vinegar does not expire in any meaningful sense. The mother may settle or look different over time, but the vinegar itself remains acidic and functional essentially forever. A gallon of Bragg's raw apple cider vinegar, the most recognized brand, runs about $10 to $12. Generic raw apple cider vinegar with mother at Costco or Sam's Club is even cheaper per ounce. I bought 6 gallons 6 months ago. I use it for cooking, cleaning, and salad dressings. I've gone through 2 gallons and the rest is sitting quietly in my basement, doing nothing, requiring nothing, and lasting indefinitely. This one changed how I think about my pantry. It's not just about eating. It's about preserving, cleaning, and maintaining health. Apple cider vinegar does all three. 2 key item. Number 8. Coconut oil. Shelf-stable fats are one of the most overlooked categories in shortage pantry planning. Your body cannot function without dietary fat. Fat is required for absorbing fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K, and it is a critical source of long-burning caloric energy. In a shortage, going fat deficient is a real risk if your pantry is loaded entirely with grains and legumes. Coconut oil is one of the best answers to this problem. Refined coconut oil has a shelf life of 2 years or more. Unrefined virgin coconut oil can last up to 5 years when kept in a cool, dark location. It is solid at room temperature, which means no leaking, no oxidation from air exposure the way liquid oils experience, and easy portion control. Compare this to vegetable oils, canola oil, or corn oil, all of which start oxidizing the moment they're opened and can go rancid within weeks to months depending on storage conditions. I tested this myself. I had a bottle of canola oil I forgot about in a back cabinet for about 8 months. When I opened it, the smell was unmistakably off. Rancid oil is not just unpleasant, it produces harmful compounds your body has to process. Coconut oil's saturated fat content makes it inherently more stable at room temperature than unsaturated fats. That's the chemistry behind it. And while the saturated fat conversation in mainstream nutrition is complex, for storage purposes, the stability is unambiguously advantageous. A large jar of refined coconut oil at Costco runs around $13 to $16 for 54 ounces. That's a significant volume of shelf-stable cooking fat for a reasonable price. I keep 2 large jars in my pantry at all times. I cook with it several times a week. It handles high heat well and adds no flavor in refined form. This is another item that earns its place in everyday cooking, not just emergency reserves. Fat is fuel. Don't build a pantry that forgets fuel. Chapter C. Item. Number 9. Freeze-dried fruits and vegetables. Before you say anything, I know. I said this wasn't going to be astronaut food, and standard commercial freeze-dried meal pouches can be expensive and unfamiliar. But individual freeze-dried fruits and vegetables are different, and I think they deserve a spot on this list for a specific reason. In a shortage scenario, the hardest nutritional gap to fill is micronutrients, vitamins and minerals. When you're eating rice and beans and oats, you're covering calories and macronutrients. But you will feel the absence of fresh produce within weeks. Scurvy, actual scurvy from vitamin C deficiency, can begin developing within 4 to 6 weeks of eliminating fresh fruits and vegetables. Freeze-dried produce solves this. A single can of freeze-dried strawberries retains 90 to 97% of its original nutritional content, including vitamin C. Freeze-dried spinach, peas, corn, and broccoli all retain their micronutrient profiles far better than canned alternatives, which lose significant nutrition in the heat processing stage. The shelf life is 25 years sealed. That is effectively permanent for any reasonable planning horizon. The cost has come down meaningfully over the past few years. Brands like Ogison Farms sell well-reviewed freeze-dried vegetable varieties at Walmart and online. A large can of freeze-dried broccoli or sweet corn runs around $20 to $30 and provides roughly 40 to 60 servings. That math works out to reasonable cost per serving when you factor in the shelf life and nutritional density. I don't have an enormous freeze-dried stockpile. I have a modest but deliberate one, about 8 to 10 cans covering a range of vegetables and fruits. Enough that if fresh produce disappeared from my grocery store for 60 to 90 days, my family would not develop nutritional deficiencies. That is the specific gap this item fills. Calories without micronutrients is a slow crisis. This is your defense against that. Joku's item, number 10. Instant coffee and tea. I want to end with something that surprises people and that I think is genuinely underestimated in shortage planning discussions. Caffeine dependency is real. I don't mean this as a health lecture. I mean it practically. If you and your partner drink coffee every morning and your supply disrupts, you are dealing with withdrawal headaches, fatigue, irritability, and reduced cognitive function at the exact moment you need to be thinking clearly and managing stress. This is not hypothetical. Caffeine withdrawal begins within 12 to 24 hours of cessation for regular users and peaks at 20 to 48 hours. Instant coffee is the simplest solution. Folgers and Nescafé both produce instant coffee in large containers that store for 2 to 20 years sealed. A large jar of Folgers instant coffee, enough for well over 100 cups, costs around $10 and takes up almost no space. Tea, specifically black tea and green tea in sealed, individually wrapped bags, stores for 2 to 3 years easily and provides caffeine alongside antioxidants and a mild digestive benefit. A box of 300 tea bags costs around $6 to $8. But beyond the caffeine question, there's something else. Morale. The psychology of shortage situations is genuinely difficult. Having a hot cup of coffee or tea in the morning is a ritual, a signal to your brain that the day is starting normally. That psychological anchor has real value when other things feel uncertain. I also keep a small supply of instant hot cocoa mix for this reason. My kids respond to it. It's sweet, warm, familiar, and it costs almost nothing. In a stressful situation, something that makes your children feel safe and normal is not a luxury. It is a functional item. Plan for at least a 3-month supply of whatever hot beverages your household depends on. It requires almost no storage space, costs very little, and the return, in comfort, in cognitive function, in morale, is disproportionate to the investment. Here's what I want you to take away from everything we just covered. This list isn't random. There's a pattern in it. Every item I chose covers a specific gap. Calories, protein, fat, micronutrients, preservation ability, sanitation, or morale. A real shortage isn't just about having food. It's about having the right distribution of food, the right tools to extend and preserve what you have, and the psychological infrastructure to stay calm and functional. White rice gives you a caloric foundation. Salt lets you preserve. Honey gives you indefinite sweetness and antimicrobial coverage. Beans give you protein and fiber. Canned fish gives you complete protein with omega-3s. Oats give you flexibility and comfort. Apple cider vinegar gives you preservation and sanitation. Coconut oil gives you shelf-stable fat. Freeze-dried produce closes the micronutrient gap. And instant coffee and tea protect your cognitive function and morale. 10 items. 10 specific jobs. None of them require a bunker or a generator or a dramatic lifestyle change. The people who will struggle in a shortage are not the ones who couldn't afford to prepare. Most of this list costs under a few $100s total to build out to a 3-month supply. The people who will struggle are the ones who waited, who figured they'd think about it next month, next year, when things got more serious. Things are already getting more serious. Supply chains have not fully stabilized from the disruptions of the last several years. Grocery prices have not come back down the way people were told they would, and the structural pressure on food logistics, weather, fuel costs, labor, geopolitics, is not easing. The smart move is not panic. It is quiet, deliberate action. 1 extra bag of rice this trip. 6 extra cans of tuna next week. A jar of apple cider vinegar and 2 pounds of salt on your next Walmart run. You will not notice the expense spread out like that. But 6 months from now, you will have a pantry that gives you real options instead of real anxiety. Most people won't do this. They'll watch this video and feel briefly motivated, and then they'll buy something else and forget about it. That is exactly what makes the people who do act feel ahead of the curve. Because they are. You now know what to buy. You know why each item matters. You know how to store it and how to use it. The next step is yours. If this video helped you think differently about your pantry, hit the like button right now. It helps more people find this content. Subscribe if you haven't already, because I have a follow-up coming soon about exactly how to store these 10 items properly. Containers, conditions, rotation systems, the whole thing. Leave a comment and tell me which item surprised you most. I'm guessing number 7 came out of nowhere for most of you. I'll see you in the next one. Stay smart. Stay ahead of it. Take care of your people.